Back with Currently in Progress, episode 3. Our guest today is Logan Hessbrook. This is one of my favorite podcasts that we did so far, so stay tuned.
And then we didn't have football tonight, so that was when I was like, all right, fuck it, dude. Tuesday will be perfect.
Yeah. Okay. I figured it out.
Awesome.
But yeah, so you got summer football going right now?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
How's that going?
It's going good. I mean, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They do lifting at 6 o'clock at night, and then, on Friday it's at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But then, that's been doing good, and then they got quarterback receiver stuff Tuesday, Thursday. But then we had the CMU 7-on-7 Saturday.
Yep.
So then we're just like, all right, we're going to give them Tuesday
break.
off, and
Gotcha.
just because they've been doing a lot of running and obviously small school stuff, so
yeah,
you only got a certain amount of receivers and stuff.
How many people do you actually get to come to weight room? Consistently.
We're right around like 35.
Really?
30, 35, yeah.
See? And how many people are at Ithaca? Like in the school?
In the school, shoot, I think we're like 360.
Okay.
360.
So, same as Beaverton, and I tell you what, like, last couple of years, we've had good turnout, and we've had probably about 30, 35 show up to weight room.
Yeah.
Now, I guarantee you it's probably 10, 15.
Seriously?
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah.
And it's all, none of them are upperclassmen. It's straight freshmen, sophomores.
That's
and
not
it's set like 7th and 8th graders.
Right.
So, like, it's, obviously you can see that there's going to be a little gap here.
Yeah.
In Beaverton football here soon, but, I mean, you just got to take it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it all works.
Yeah.
Everything's up and down.
Yeah. High schoolers don't realize, like, what they need to do to put in the work.
Yep.
And, like, figure that stuff out before season starts.
Yeah.
Rather than getting into season and thinking, like, oh, well, this guy's been squatting 225 for reps easy, like, all summer. I can't even do that.
Right.
And then now I got to tackle him.
Exactly.
It does not work out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we had. Yesterday, this is all testing, or like maxing week for them.
Yeah.
So they're all doing their maxes and stuff. And there's kids that are freshmen, sophomores that, are just beasts.
Yeah.
And just because they've been working out. They've been working out since January. And
it doesn't take much.
They didn't have, middle school basketball this year because of COVID.
Yep.
And so all those kids, 7th and 8th graders, were just like, well, we'll just lift then. Something to do after school. And, yeah, they've been hitting it hard. And so those kids are, developing like freaking trees right now.
It's crazy seeing that too when they're young because, like, at that age, that's when they're growing so much.
Right.
So then you can really see them just start like, holy shit, like, when I was a freshman, there ain't no way I was even benching 135.
Exactly. That's what there's, like some of those kids in there 13, 14 years old, and, I didn't bench 135 till going into my junior year of high school. Like,
yeah, you don't need, like, sometimes you don't think you need to.
Right.
But, yeah. The skill acquisition, I don't know, this is kind of weird to think about, and I've thought about this the other day. Sports now, like youth sports, and basketball you see it more, but like everyone's so much more skilled, but they're not. Back in the day, it was like you had these giant dudes.
Yeah.
Like, I remember playing against, like, going and watching Standish and seeing play.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, I'm like, bro, like, I don't want to play against a guy. Like, I don't even care if he's that good, but he's just going to smack me. But now you got kids that are, like, tiny as shit.
Yep.
And they're just super skilled.
Yeah.
I just don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's some kids like that at Ithaca too, but what we've been seeing too is, like, so many kids now, like, there isn't as many multi-sport athletes. Like,
that's very true.
Like, a lot of kids just try to focus on one sport, and it's like, I was in high school, I played 3 sports, basketball, football, baseball. In the summer, I'd have basketball in the morning, football in the afternoon, and a baseball game at night.
Yeah.
And it was like, so many kids now, it's like, all right, I'm playing 3 sports, but this is my primary.
Yep.
So then they'll miss and sacrifice the other workouts. And, being from small schools, not very often, are you going to the NBA? Are you going, you know what I mean?
You're not going far.
Yeah, so it's like, just some kids, and, I don't know if it's the parents at times too that are like, all right, we're pushing this on the kids and all that, but, it just seems where things are trending now, especially, we're so much more low numbers than we were in high school. Like, my senior year, we had like 14 or 15 seniors on my team, and in football at least, and, majority of them, they played basketball and baseball as well. So it was like, you don't see that nowadays.
No.
You don't see the carryover, and a lot of kids are taking 1 or 2, seasons off and just training for one, and it's like, that's not what high school sports is for.
It's not for you to be a pro.
Right.
You're not there to be a pro.
Exactly.
It's crazy though, because in Beaverton too, we got one kid that, I mean, you can clearly tell he specializes in baseball.
Yep.
But he plays all three sports, and he is by far the best player
Yeah.
out of all of them. And I don't know, is it because he plays all three?
Right.
Because he's that good? I don't know. But still, like, if your best player is proving that he can do all these things, a lot of other people like to follow suit.
Exactly.
And it's fun when you see the best player do it rather than the two underclassmen that are just like, oh, we'll do it. And it's like, well, you're just kids. Like,
right.
You don't really, if you do it, cool. But, like, when you get your captains to do it, it's when stuff goes right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's like, we have some kids that, one of our best athletes on the football team. I mean, he's just a natural athlete. Baseball is his best sport, and that he focuses on a lot. And, that's good for him because he's an all-league player in all three sports. It's great. And then, it just depends really on the leadership of, what he is as a person to get other people to follow suit. And, because that's such a thing now, especially is, everyone follows after the leaders, and, if you're a leader in the classroom, then people are going to think, all right, well, hey, it's cool to get good grades.
Yeah.
But if they grow up seeing, and following that wrong crowd of, hey, this kid gets C's and D's, but he's a cool kid, that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yep.
And
little kids look up to that.
Yeah.
It's unreal how, like, you don't realize it, obviously, when you're a senior. But, like, it's kind of weird, too, when you were a senior, obviously Beaverton wasn't making playoffs.
Right.
So every playoff season, me and my dad would come watch Ithaca.
Yeah.
And it was freaking awesome. Like that, you guys played Meridian.
Yep.
In one of the district games, and we're sitting here, we watch Meridian, we're like, dang, Meridian's good.
Yep.
We know Ithaca's going to smack them. but how hard are they going to smack them?
Yeah.
And then you guys come out there and just destroy them, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's the standard in another school that you don't even see until you're there, until you're right in the fray. Like, you can't watch that on film.
Right.
Like, you can, but, like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You never know how fast someone is on film.
Exactly.
It's just wild.
Yeah, that's like what always made me, obviously, being a small school kid, and I wasn't recruited heavily at all.
Yeah.
So I always had that underdog approach, and everything. And obviously, I had a girlfriend at the time that played volleyball, so I'd go to different schools and go to different games, and they'd be like, oh, well, you play football? I'm like, yeah. And they talk about certain teams I don't want to mention, but, talk about certain teams, and they're like, hey, well, they're going to smack, they got this kid and that kid. And it's like, all right. It's like I go to practice with, our scout defense is the best defense that we played all year.
Exactly.
And that was primarily sophomores.
Yeah.
That was, Jake Smith ended up being their senior class, and, those guys won their own state title, but it was frustrating because it was like, you guys don't understand
who we play.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, it's like our league wasn't strong, but it's like, we can't choose what league we're in.
No.
And, when we played non-conference schools, and we played Williamston, and, they're a Division IV school, and, we smacked them. Yeah. So it was like, all right, what more do you want us to do?
Yeah.
I mean,
and you guys picked up Claire recently. I don't think you ever played Claire, but they started picking up Claire, and it was kind of cool to see because obviously that's a direct comparison with my conference and yours.
Yep.
And even those games later, obviously, but they were still good.
Yeah.
Like Claire knows how to compete, and Kelly Luplo is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, Kelly's he's a great dude.
I don't know how he does it, but he always dials up the play that just. You don't even know it. Like a tight end screen, they hit us with that once.
Yep.
It was just like, bro, who runs tight end screen in high school?
Exactly.
It was bull crap, but it's just what he does.
Yeah, and Kelly, and then I was close with Brent because he was a couple years older than I was, and we both had played in the same AAU basketball program. Yeah. So I got to know him, and then obviously met Kelly and everything, and obviously he's always been friends with my dad and my uncle. But just seeing how he operates his program is so similar to what we do at Ithaca, and it's a lot of it's based on tradition and pride and old school work ethic.
And if you don't have that, you see exactly what happens.
Yep.
And it's very easy to tell who works hard at practice and who doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will show. It doesn't disguise itself at all.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Okay, so you said you got recruited.
Yep.
Where did you went to Saginaw first, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So how did that whole thing go out?
So my junior year, I was absolutely terrible at football. Like, I mean, I was 6'2", you know, I was 160 pounds, so I was scrawny. You know, I played safety, and I mean, I was all conference, but I think it was also helped that we had a good team, so then you get more votes. But, you know, I just wasn't very physical. You know, I was kind of timid out there. And then Travis Smith, obviously everyone knows Travis Smith around the area, and he got hurt in the state finals game on like the second or third play. I happened to be the backup quarterback, so then, you know, went in state finals. We ended up winning. Thank God we had a good team, you know. And then my recruiting kind of picked up, and so it was like, you know, March or April of my junior year of high school. You know, we're in the middle of baseball season, and baseball at the time was my best sport. You know, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, you know, whatever is this visit going to be? You know, Saginaw emailed me. I sent them my highlight film. They're like, well, we'd love to get you on campus. So visited there. You know, they gave me an offer. And, you know, I called my Uncle Terry, who is obviously the coach, and I was like, hey, I just got an offer. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I just got a scholarship. Like, I don't know, you know, what this really means or anything, because it was all so new to me. And, you know, the funniest thing was they're like, well, we're offering you to play receiver. And, you know, I only had like 4 or 5 catches because I only played defense. And so then, you know, going into senior year, you know, I was going to the camps at Grand Valley, up at Central, and, you know, going around, and, you know, I gained, fortunately, like another 20 pounds, so I was about 180, 185. And Grand Valley had a lot of interest in me, too, so they offered me. So, you know, it was really just them two. And then right before signing day, senior year, Central wanted to offer me a gray shirt. So you go in, you know, for fall camp, then you go home for a semester, but when you come back in the winter, you're on scholarship. And so I was a little bit like, well, shoot, I'm going to go somewhere else. You know, I'm going to go to Saginaw where I can play right away. You know, went there, played my freshman year, you know, started a few games, broke my collarbone. And, you know, it was after that, going into my sophomore year, I was like, you know, I want to give D1 a shot. And so that was when, you know, I transitioned to then walking on here. And, you know, that was tough. I mean, you just go from, you know, not so to say like you're, you know, the big man on campus, but, you know, you go from playing as a true freshman, and you know a lot of people, have a lot of connections with professors and everything, and, you know, then it's like, all right, well, then you walk on. Yeah, I didn't know anyone here. Like, you know, I knew kids that were in my class but not athletes. You know, and I came in as a receiver, and it was like the second week of winter conditioning. Coach Bono asked me to play tight end. You know, I'm 200 pounds. I'm like, oh, jeez, you know, this is gonna be tough. But, you know, I had to sit out in 2016 for transferring in because, you know, they didn't have the new transfer rule, and you know, gained about 25, 30 pounds, and then, you know, had a good spring, and, you know, then the rest is history. It's like,
dang, that is a process though. And how you went to Saginaw first, and you wanted to play, and then the whole D1 kind of like what made you like think like I need to go D1?
So, you know, I thought to myself, like, all right, I already proved in my head that I could play at D2, and you know, because any level, if you're playing as a freshman, either one, you know, you don't have a lot of depth, or two, you know, you can play at that level and you're ready. And, you know, I felt that I was ready to play D2, and so, you know, I played, and you know, then I kind of like grew up after that injury, and was, you know, obviously had a lot of downtime, and you know, I wasn't able to work out and everything, and you know, what I kind of thought was like, all right, I only got one chance at this, and it's like, I want to transfer, I want to try to play D1, just so then it's like, shoot, you know, I want to tell my future kids, you know, well, hey, you know, you got to follow your dreams and everything. And, you know, I think I was just young and dumb in high school when I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm going to go to Saginaw, and I'm going to be an All-American, you know, go to the NFL and prove it that way. But, you know, near and dear to my heart's Central. I mean, it's 20 minutes away. And so I'm like, well, shoot, you know, this is just dumb. I'm going to transfer there, and, you know, ended up getting my scholarship, and, you know, it was the best decision I ever made. I mean, I met all my best friends up here, and, you know, the relationships I built with professors, and, you know, once you're a chip, you know, you're always a chip, and, you know, that's just something that, you know, I always wanted to be one. And, you know, once I kind of grew up a little bit and realized, you know, I don't have to go to Central on a scholarship, you know, I can work my way up, and kind of that, you know, that underdog, you know, mentality that, you have just from being from a small school.
And you already had it.
Yeah.
So it was easy to just transition and go into that.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially going against like those obviously just the next level athletes. I mean, coming in at 180, or did you come in at 180 or 200?
At Saginaw or
at Central?
At Central, I came in at like 200.
Yeah.
And the first time I'd ever been in a 3-point stance was when I came to Central. So I'd never blocked anyone, like never blocked a defensive end, Yeah. And so, shout out to Coach Moore, obviously, Michigan, co-offensive coordinator now, but I can only imagine what was going through his head when it's like, I got this kid to deal with. Like, stance was terrible. I was 200 pounds, was weak, I had no idea what I was doing. And, then, fortunately our coaching staff believed in me enough and, gave me the opportunity to get bigger and stronger. And, then I developed. And honestly, the biggest thing for me was just growing mentally. Like, you just have to mature so much quicker in college sports. And, obviously you can go in college, there's a lot of distractions, a lot of partying you can go out and do. And, I never in my college career took a spring break once.
No?
No, and sometimes it's like, all right, obviously,
safe bet.
It was a good idea at the time. I thought, all right, well, I'm going to make the NFL now, so I just go down and train in Lansing with a trainer down there, and didn't really party much, and then then I got a bunch of injuries up here with concussions and everything. And, so sometimes I have a little regret, like, all right, I could have had more fun when I was here, but that was...
It was the decision you made.
Yeah, and
you just gotta live with it.
Everything happens for a reason, and, I didn't believe that until, all my injuries I had.
Yeah.
I didn't even believe in a concussion in high school or anything until I got them up here, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't drive, I can't go to... I couldn't go to class, I couldn't think right, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing.
Very.
Yeah.
I have one, because we kind of grew up in the same age of like, oh, it's a stinger. Like, you start seeing stars, like, you're good. Like, that's nothing. And I'm like, and you don't realize, like, growing up, you have a lot of those.
Yeah.
And no one, and like, you don't say anything. No one, and it kind of, like, they're kind of minor enough to where you get to the sideline and it kind of just goes away.
Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't. It's still there.
Yeah.
It's definitely wild. Concussions are a disease for sure.
Yeah, and that was like, I'd had him in high school, and I remember like, different times, like going into school on like Monday or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like the lights are so bright and all this and all that, and it's like, oh, I'm fine. Like, it is what it is. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. It's just a headache. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like then you start thinking back, like how many concussions did I really have?
Yeah. Like, and how many, like, what are you supposed to only have? Like,
exactly.
You're only supposed to have like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's what they say. I know plenty of people that have at least 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And now you probably know people that have more than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Like the Kelvin Johnson thing, like how he had said after he retired, is like, almost every play it seems like you have a concussion, and it's like, I felt that, because you're going against. I mean, there's only a certain amount of people that go to college to play sports, but then it's like you look at the Division I level, and it's like some of them dudes I was playing against Kansas and Syracuse, like there's some big dudes out there.
They'll hurt you.
And that really woke me up.
Yeah.
Like made me realize like this is a real thing, and now I'm like, if a kid that we're coaching is like, I think I might have a concussion, it's like, all right, you're out. Like. Not risking this. Especially
in high school, you don't even question, as a coach, you don't even question that. The instant there is any doubt, there's no way for like the trainer to make that decision at the time.
Right.
Like that's all like testing and stuff like that later. So like at that point, you're just like, boom, I'm sorry, but I don't care who you are, you got to go out, because if that's on my head, that you have a brain injury. Crazy enough, my junior year, we had a kid, and it was against Holton Lake. He first half, I think he had like 13 tackles. Going absolutely nuts. Never played linebacker before. Having the time of his life. Comes off the sideline one time, and he's just like, I don't feel too good. And we're like, cool, whatever. You're a big dude. You've been going hard. Whatever. Like, you're good. Come third quarter, this kid is literally puking on the sideline, like sitting on the bench, and then goes back in. Somehow goes back in, and then comes out again. He got a brain hemorrhage. He was literally bleeding. And then they take him to the hospital. This dude was in a coma for about 3 weeks. Brain damage, everything. This kid, and guess what? I don't know all that whole story,
Yep.
but all that happened, comes back next year, plays football.
Jeez.
He literally had to beg his mom every day. Can I please play? Like, this is the only thing I live for. And he played his senior year with all, like, his senior year, my junior year, with all of them. Oh my God, still amazing.
Right.
Still, I mean, for Beaverton, probably one of the best D linemen we had.
Yep.
And I mean, he had a freaking coma. He was in a coma the year before, and he still loved the game that much to risk it. And it's just like, dude, I get it, but like, this is high school.
Yeah.
Like, you have the rest of your life. I get it that it means so much.
Yep.
And it does mean a lot, obviously.
Right.
To kids at that time, it means so much.
Yeah, and I think, like, the biggest thing that I kind of fell prey to was, like, that ego of being an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, because anytime you see someone in the community, they talk about, well, how's football, how's baseball, how's basketball.
Always.
And, you know, it's the same thing when you go in college. Like, you know, you kind of lose your own identity of who you are as a person because everything they ask you for the last 6 to 8 years is, well, how's sports, how's football? And it's like, shoot, you know, when's the last time someone said, well, how are you, Logan?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then it's like you lose that. And, you know, that's like the biggest thing. You kind of lose your identity and, you know, you got to really, and I kind of just got over that, you know.
Yeah.
Like that whole identity crisis you kind of run into, you know, just by kind of just doing a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of reading. Like, you know.
Dude, reading's huge. I've actually read like 6 books this year. Just this year alone. Coach Welsh.
Yep.
When I worked with him, he, like, our whole internship was about reading. Like, well, not about reading, but we'd have to read books, and they weren't even close to about strength and conditioning.
Yep.
One of them was extreme ownership.
Yep.
Marine one, obviously, so many people know that one. And then influencing people, learning how to talk and influencing people.
Yep.
And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, these books are way cooler than any book I have ever read in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and where have they been? Like, I've been reading textbooks and all this bullshit. No one wants to read those.
Right.
And no one likes reading those.
Right.
Imagine when you're a kid and they let you read. I mean, obviously they do let you read. It's like AR points, but they don't ever, like, put one of those books in front of you and think, oh, like, this is so much easier to think about than To Kill the Mockingbird, when every single page the teacher has to freaking tell you what happened.
Right.
Like, what good is that?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what, you know, I kind of got into. And even, like, my senior year at Central, you know, I was one of my, like, capstone classes, and the professor said, readers are leaders. And, you know, even at that time, I'm like, oh, whatever. Yeah. This guy doesn't know anything. You know, I'm smarter than him. That's just your natural ego everyone gets when you're in college. And, you know, that's, like, probably the most true thing and the biggest thing that stuck with me after graduating now. And, you know, that's what I read all the time, you know, right before bed. You know, even instead of turning on Netflix, you know, I'll just read a chapter, read 20 pages, whatever. And, you know, because then you go to bed with something that's on your mind, and then you wake up and it's still on your mind. Instead of, all right, what's, you know, going to happen in Ozark next? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, you don't
need,
switch your train of thought.
You don't need Ozark. Mm-hmm. You need to think about what you're doing, like, later in life, rather than what you're reading about.
Right.
It's crazy. I've been reading Bird by Bird, and it's literally just how to, like, write a book.
Okay.
And literally all it is just get through it. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you're gonna have to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much every chapter is just a reiteration of that, and it's like, dang, like, this thing is gonna tell me for 18 chapters that I should just sit down and do it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to wait until I get to the end to realize that that's what I need to do.
Right.
But still, it's once you do, that's the trigger. That's the tipping point that takes you into that, like, better habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Yep.
What else? Damn, bro, that was solid. That was solid. Oh God. Okay. So let's hear more. Obviously, we got a little bit into this, like, mental health story.
Yep.
But, like, is there a specific story you got for us?
Yeah. So, you know, I've always, like, been an anxious person, and really, I kind of realized it, like, right when I transferred to Central, that I kind of had, like, different mental health illnesses and stuff, and you know, it was really anxiety and depression. And you know, when I transferred in, obviously, like, I still was paying for my parents at the time were paying for my apartment in Saginaw. Mm-hmm. And so I was living at home my first semester here when I transferred. My parents were like, well, we can get you an apartment up here. And I was like, no, like, you're already letting me forgive pretty much a full scholarship to come here and walk on. So I lived at home. And so it was tough for me to kind of build relationships with people and with the guys, just because, you know, for the most part, I would, go to workouts, I'd go to study tables, get all my homework done, go to class, go home.
Yep.
Like, so really, like, I just kind of felt like depressed, you know, like I'd left a lot of good friends, a lot of good connections in Saginaw, you know, and then I came here and just felt down all the time. Like, you know, I didn't see joy in hunting or fishing anymore, and like that's like my two biggest things.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd actually reached out to, you know, my family doctor and, you know, talked to him about what can I do, and he's like, well, let's get you on some medicine first, and, you know, we'll also get you a counselor. So I go to this first counselor, and, you know, obviously not going to say any names. You know, go for one appointment. I felt like it was pretty good. Going for the second appointment a week later, and she's like, so how are you, like, responding after that DUI you had? Like, how was court? And I was like, what? She's like, well, didn't you have a DUI and everything? And I was like, no. Like, no, you got the wrong person.
Yeah, where did that go?
And yeah, and so she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, I just met this lady a week ago.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, told my doctor, and so then I got a new counselor, and she's still the same person I see every once in a while now. Like, it's just like Zoom calls now, like probably once every 2-3 months. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I just realized that I'd fallen prey to that ego athlete and that ego stereotype, you know, where I was doing different things out of character. And, you know, really then I grew up going into my junior year at Central when I was going to be eligible. Mm-hmm. And, you know, realized that, you know, partying isn't everything, you know, talking to girls isn't everything. Like, you know, you got to stay true to yourself, and, you know, then the rest of the stuff takes care of itself. And, you know, then I kind of had that expectation every time I went home. It was like, you know, if someone would talk about football, then I would just reflect that, and, you know, hey, that's great, but how's your son or how's your daughter? And just totally switch the conversation. And, you know, just because I was, you know, you get sick of it. You get sick of hearing, well, how's football? How's this? And how's that? And, you know, at times, for the most part, in college sports, you go through so much adversity. So a lot of times you say it's great even when it's going terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So,
sure.
you know, so then you just struggle. Like, you don't know. You almost kind of get blinded, like, between, all right, what's this perception and then what's the reality of it?
Yeah.
And, you know, so then, you know, I put out a couple videos here. You know, well, one was like a month ago. The other one was back in March. You know, because I kind of went through that same thing of losing who I was as a person. You know, and I was just getting back into bad partying habits, and you know, just really realized, like, you know, there's only one me in the world. Like, I don't model myself after anyone. Like, I just try to be true to myself, and you know, to my name as possible. You know, so that's like the toughest thing is, like, you know, physically, like, you feel great, you know, and everything, and then, you know, you start to really reflect and, you know, look at yourself in the mirror. Instead of looking at yourself physically, you start looking at your inner self. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, your soul, your morals, your ideals, everything. You know, I think the biggest thing that helped me was just coming out and telling my friends and telling my family, like, hey, you know, I suffer with, you know, anxiety, depression, and getting open about it and talking about it. And, you know, because, you know, a lot of people are going through that same thing.
Yeah.
But you know, I put that armor up, that fake guard up of being an athlete, and, you know, thinking I can't go through this. I got so many people looking up to me. But you know, so I didn't come out public with it, you know, until a few months ago. And you know, the amount of people that reached out to me, like, you know, hey, my son's going through this, or you know, people I looked up to my whole life. Well, you know, thank you for sharing this. Like, you know, this is helping me. And it's like, holy cow. And, you know, you reach so many different people just by telling the truth. Yeah. So there's no sense in saying, no, I don't go through that. You know, I'm not a weak person, is what a lot of people think, you know, if you come out with that. But it's like, no, you're a strong person if you can come out and say what you're going through, and, you know, don't let it affect you, you know, more than it really is. Yeah. And I think that's the whole issue with the whole mental health nowadays is, like, so many people just see it as such a weakness. And it's like, you know, there's so many people
that deal with it.
I mean, every single person you see, I guarantee you, has went through something.
Yes.
They've been depressed. They've been anxious. Yes. You know, they've been angry about something, and it's like,
it's a daily thing.
Exactly.
It's a daily thing.
There's so many stressors nowadays, especially, like, with social media too. Mm-hmm. You know, so many people fall prey to, like, conveying themselves in a way that they're not. Yeah. And that's, I mean, obviously I have social media. Everyone does. Yes. But, you know, it's like, you see some people that you know as a person, and what they're really like, and then they put something on social media.
It's just like, what is that?
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're not staying true to yourself, and it's like, so then you got to reach out to those people and really check in on them, because they're usually going through something.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the next question. When it comes to like reaching out to people, how do you do that in a sense of like, obviously it's something that people don't want to talk about.
Right.
So how do you do that in the sense of like, obviously your best friends, it's a little bit easier. You can just be straight up blunt with them.
Yeah.
But some people, like, they don't have that at all. Yeah. And it's, how do you bring that up?
Yeah, so I think for me, I kind of used my, like that, I guess, like, still kind of like the pedestal you have, like, of being an athlete, a lot of people still just see me as an athlete, and I haven't put pads and a helmet on in over 3 years. Like, so I knew I could gain, not attention, but I could really reach an audience. Yeah. And so that was the main reason I wanted to, is just because there's so many people that, are near and dear to my heart, that I know their kids have went through something, or I know that, them as adults have went through something. And, it's difficult. Like, it's not something that, a lot of people want to talk about. No. But, those are the uncomfortable conversations you have to have. And, for me to be able to voice it, honestly, it makes it better. Because the more people that know, hey, this guy's going through this, like, and if they don't, support you, or if they don't, like, if they're like, are you serious you're going through that? It's like, that shows you what kind of person they really are. And so really, you take that big friend group you think you got, and it's like, there really isn't as many as you thought. Yeah. So, the ones that I told and everyone, I feel like it's made my relationships better with a lot of people, and
it's gotten rid of the relationships that you did.
Exactly. And like, my dad always says, don't water the weeds, water the flowers, and that's so true when it just comes to being a person. Yeah. And because there's always going to be people that hate you for some reason, or look down on you for some reason. So it's like, just for some person, like, to not like someone, whether it's because they're an athlete or it's because they're successful in something, like, that's so immature. Yeah. And my philosophy, when I was in school, was like, when I was young and I was going through like the different mental health things and hiding behind that ego, I was just like, well, I'm only going to hang out with athletes, because that's what I am. That's everyone sees me as that. Yep. And it's like, once I kind of like dropped that, I made so many friends with people that are in, sororities and frats and everything like that, just normal students. And it's like, why did I ever default to just being an athlete? And it's like, once people, fall for that, that becomes their identity. And then they close off so many open doors that, could lead you to the best friendships of your life. Yeah. And, so when I finally grew up, which obviously I'm still growing now, but, when I kind of felt like I turned that page was really the fall of 2017, like, my junior year here, and just building more relationships, just talking with more people. Because it's like, I wanted, at that point, you grow up, instead of like thinking like, I'm only going to relate to athletes because that's only what people see me as. It was like, all right, no, I'm going to prove to these people, like, athletes aren't, we're just people too. Exactly. But, you kind of fall around different guys, because obviously, just like in high school, you look up to seniors, you look up to upperclassmen. So it was like, there's different guys I could have followed when I first transferred in here, and instead I followed the cool crowd. And, which really nowadays, it's like, I don't even talk to those guys, and so really it was just kind of figuring out myself, and, counseling was the best thing for me. Yeah. Because you're forced to have those uncomfortable conversations, and, it's behind closed doors, but, once you learn, about yourself, and you learn about the perception and everything like that, then it was so much easier to go out and tell people. Yeah. It's not even
closed. It's still not closed doors if you're telling a therapist, because the doors are you. Like, that's the door you have to open. Right. And being able to just even say it out loud to anyone is a big enough jump from that to anything. That's for sure. Yeah. No, the identity thing is kind of weird, because I'm kind of in a different, I'm in a different sense right now. But like, if you knew me when I was younger, you knew that I was like 5'0", shit, like straight up the 12-year-old trying to play like senior sports. Yep. And now, and I've had it on a couple podcasts already too, but the two guys that I had that knew me when I was a kid literally straight up said, like, if you were to know who you were back then and see you now, I wouldn't even recognize you.
Right.
You're a completely different person. And at work the other day, there was a new girl that started working.
Yep.
And then she recently started getting like more and more work. So I knew she was going to be a manager. I knew she was going to be there. So I started getting friends with her, whatever. And they were telling me how they were talking about me when I wasn't there.
Yep.
And about how I'm probably like this player. And like, oh, you probably like get all the girls and do all this. I'm like, bro, I've never had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
This. Like, I may look like, I lift, long blonde hair, tattoos. I think that's more of a sense of like throughout high school, I never had that.
Right.
So now it's like everyone told me like 5-year reunion, Nate's gonna come back, he's gonna be tall, he's gonna be strong, he's gonna be all these things, and it's like, and I'm like, I don't know why, if that is why I did it, but I am glad I did. Like I like this version of myself much more than I had in my past version.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy that like that growth, but also that just misunderstanding of like, you see people and you think that that's how they look at you, like back then. Obviously being like the kid and you being the athlete, and everyone still does. And it's just like, I don't even remember what that kid would have said to you right now. He probably would have just stuttered and just been looking at you and then hid behind his dad or something. Like, what is that?
Yeah, and that's like, a great example. I had a wedding reception up here in Mount Pleasant on Saturday. And, it was a high school friend that had gotten married, and I hadn't seen so many of my classmates and people that I went to high school with in 7-8 years. And, you see them and it's like, oh, well, what do you, like, how did you get so big and all? And it's like, all right, quit. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I just want to have conversation. But it's like, that was the natural thing that they default to is like, hey, he's an athlete. Yeah. And it's like, you guys, my junior year, like, I was literally the weakest part of our team. Like, what do you mean? Out of 22 starters, I mean, I was probably 22. Like, I was the last one to get on the field, and I kind of, you kind of miss those days of not having that stereotype of
for sure.
having that false perception from people. And I work out now because it's my biggest form of therapy. Like because now, I still train like I'm playing football, but now I'm just realizing it's like I got one body for the rest of my life. Like I had to try to make it as healthy as I possibly can. And that's just like the biggest transition I had, because I remember that first year after I was done playing, like I was just working out and it just made me sad. Like I was like, oh, I should be doing this for football. I should be doing. Instead, it was like, you know what? Like my injuries and everything, like that made me grow so much and open my eyes to so many more things in life itself. Because before the injuries, I still thought I was going to the NFL. Like. I'd seen guys ahead of me going to the NFL, and it's like, okay, I'm just as good as that person. That's what you think. And so, then, you talk to your coaches and you talk to, your family and friends, and they're like, all right, he's going to the NFL. Like, but it's like, no, that's not who my life is. And that's, just that identity that I fell to instead of just staying true to who I was. And so now it's like, all right, I'm working out and I'm just trying to be the best version of myself as possible.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's kind of like the whole, like, the idea of success, too.
Yeah.
So, like, your idea of success was the NFL.
Yep.
And then when that changed, everything had to change. Yeah. And there's obviously that growing pains of, like, you get depressed, obviously, because like, that one dream that you had for how long is now out the window. Yep. Like, for a fact that door's shut.
Yep.
Time to open another one.
Yeah.
And that time to open another one, there's definitely time in between that.
Right.
You're in a closed room by yourself.
Yeah.
Trying to figure shit out.
Yeah, and that was tough too. But even like my injuries like made me so much like, I mean, I was a good student like, before my injuries or anything, but like it really like made me more passionate about school. Yeah. And it was like, I'm in school for 4.5 years, but it's like that 4.5 years setting yourself up for the next 40 or 50 years. Yes. And, once I kind of realized that, it was like, oh my God, like, who is this person? Like, I like going to class, you know what I mean? I like hearing about different like business things. And, so it really just opened my eye to everything.
Like learning.
I liked learning. And instead of me learning football, it was me learning about how I'm going to better my life. Like, because, once I realized, all right, there's no NFL for me, it was like, all right, so how am I going to how am I going to live my next, next part of my life?
Yep.
And obviously I'm coaching now, so that keeps me close to the game. It'll never be the same, obviously. But, just being able to talk to the kids now, like, about what it takes. And, when you see those younger guys and, at 7-on-7s, they drop a pass. It's like, listen, you don't realize how many passes I've dropped, And, just to be able to try to have them switch their mindset, because so many people, and I've seen it with different kids, growing up when I was at college, like, social media has become so big that instead of them, like, being upset about losing a game, it was more like, oh, shoot, I'm upset that the camera guy didn't get a cool picture of me.
Or you didn't get that one highlight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
On the news. It's like, bro, you lost.
Exactly.
No one gives a shit about that highlight.
Yeah.
If you lost by 40.
Yeah, and that was like, when we were on that whole streak and everything, Ithaca, like, the coolest thing about it was, like, no one cared who had the success. Literally no one. Like, our idea of success, like, it was, all right, state championship or nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
It was win.
Right,
Period.
it was win. I mean, there's
over.
games I had one catch for 10 yards.
Who cares?
But the dudes beside me, they had 3 catches for 3 touchdowns and 150 yards.
Yeah.
And it was like, once I kind of got over that and, like, we all kind of, like, grew up, and it was like, well, shoot, if I have a good game, the next week they're going to have a safety in a corner that are pressing me and right over the top of me. But backside, they're one-on-one, like, and that was the coolest thing, is, like, we all knew that that's how it was going to work.
Yes.
And, there'd be games where Travis would throw for 400-some yards and 6 touchdowns. So then, the next game, there's 5 dudes in the box, and it was like, all right, then our running back goes off and has 250. Yeah. And it was like,
it doesn't matter as long as we're going to take what you give us.
Right, exactly.
And we're good enough to understand. And people just get and I like seeing that in basketball.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm more of a basketball school. We had spinning and stuff.
Yep.
No one, like, cared who scored.
Right.
Give or take the fact that Spencer would make you score.
Yeah.
Because he's going to pass you the ball right here, and you're going to shoot a layup, and you're going to be easy. But, like, people on our team on fast breaks would race to who gets to the block first. Because guess what? Whoever gets to the block first is going to score.
Yeah.
Because Spencer's going to come in right behind you, and either he's going to score or you're going to get a layup.
Yep.
And it was just so nice. Like, everyone knew, just get to your spot.
Yep.
Just do what you can do and be ready to do it.
Right.
Because it will eventually come to that point, and you have to do your job.
Yep.
It's super simple, and once people, like, good teams figure that out, like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Because then it opens everything up. Everyone's an option. Because you have it in football, you have it in small-town basketball, where 4th, 5th guy, or any backup, it's just not an option.
Right.
Coaches know, coaches don't put them in positions to get the ball or do do anything.
Right.
And you get mad as one of those players, but you also got to realize, like, there's a reason that I'm not getting the ball.
Right.
And it's hard because I was coaching 2 wide receivers their junior year.
Yep.
Both basketball players, both tall as shit. I think they were 6'3", 6'4". Both pretty good wide receivers.
Yep.
Beaverton ran the veer. We had a all-state quarterback, didn't have to throw.
Yeah.
These kids on the sideline, fuck this, I don't want to do this, blah blah. Like, we're never gonna get the ball. Why do we even play? Just put linemen out there, they'll block.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, you guys gotta realize, you get that one chance, you take advantage of it. Now Sizer, our coach, is like, oh well, now we're gonna pass the ball. He proved it.
Right.
He proved it once, do it again.
Right.
Do it again, do it again, do it again. And then come senior year, these kids are getting 2 or 3 targets a game, but guess what? They're 40 yards a thing.
Right.
They're getting up, standing, going crazy. It's like you realize that's your time now.
Yep.
That was your patience that paid off.
Yep.
And it was so nice. It was so cool to see those guys actually have that patience, stick with it, and understand, like, we will get our time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like our 5th option my senior year on offense was Jake Smith, who's starting quarterback at Harvard. Yeah. Like, Jake didn't care. Like, he was a sophomore. Yeah, he was an absolute stud. But it was like, Jake would get 2 or 3 catches a game probably.
Yep.
But he understood. He just wanted to win too. Yeah. And that was, like, the best thing about it. It was like any single film session, like, that we went to, like, it didn't matter if I had 3 or 4 touchdowns or if I had 0 targets. Like, we won. Like, yeah, I'm pissed that, I could have done better. Because then it's like, once you become like unselfish, it was like, then I would be on myself and I'd be pissed if I missed a block.
Yeah.
And our running back got tackled or Travis got tackled. Like, then I would just like take that to heart. And it was like, you know what? I'm staying after practice. I'm pushing this freaking lineman sled. Like, I'm going to get better at blocking.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right. Then the next game it opens up, have a couple touchdowns. And then it's like, okay, well, I could have done this better. And so then, like, once you, instead of, looking for that one highlight film play, that's like, oh my gosh, this is going to get me looks and everything like that. Like, if you get caught up in that, like, then you're not going to be successful just because you're just looking at the good. You're not looking at the bad.
Yeah.
And, then I translate that now to my life and, what I'm going through or, who I'm talking to or how I represent myself. Like, there's so many things that, I've done wrong in my life, off the field, on the field, that, it still happens nowadays. Yeah. But it's just how you handle yourself after that. Because there's so much adversity that you're going to go through. Excuse me. And, just being able to handle yourself in a mature way and, understand when you're wrong instead of trying to put blame on someone else. Like, then you're growing. Then if you start taking passion and, like, being hard on yourself and instead of just looking for the positive reinforcement from others, it's like, I told my brother, like, when he hired me to help him coach, I'm like, I want you to be as hard on me as possible. Like, I don't care that I was a receiver, that I was a tight end in college. Like, dude, if you're the head man, like, if you see something that I'm doing wrong, whatever it is, like, be on me about it. Yep. And he has been. Which, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, man, it's just my older brother getting on me. But it's like, you know what? He's a smart dude. He's in the position he is for a reason. And it's like, that's the weirdest thing is, when I go to football and he's my boss. Because he's the same dude that I grew up playing all the backyard sports with. Yeah. But, I think that's, like, what makes it special is the different arguments that him and I have about different coaching and about different plays that we want to run. And, him and I are totally opposite people. So you have him who's very, like, introverted. I'm very extroverted. I'm talking all the time. A lot of times when I'm telling them different ideas with football, like, I don't even know if they're going to be a good idea, but I just want to give input. Yeah. And so just being able to hear him, like, all right, no, this is why that's not going to work. Or, hey, that's a great idea. Like, we'll rep it. Yeah. And then at times, like, we'll rep those plays, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh, man, this is a bad play. Like, and I chose that, so it's like, all right, man, scrap that. I'm wrong. Like, do your own thing. Like, just ignore me. But that's the coolest thing about that, too.
Yeah. And being brothers, obviously, there's that thing in the back of your head just saying, like, I can go kind of hard on this guy, and I know for a fact we're going to go home and we're going to be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that. And, like, coaching with me, too, you see that with all our coaches. Like, we're all going to be good at the end of the day.
Right.
But when we step on the field, like, you might piss me off.
Right.
And I might say some things to you that you're not going to like.
Yep.
But we'll get over it because obviously it's for the kids.
Yeah.
It's only the reason we're yelling at each other is because we want them to win games.
Right.
That's all it is. And then kids don't realize that the only reason we're yelling at them is because we want you to be better to win games.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, because like I said, like, I'm very, like, outspoken on so many different things. And so I'm obviously extremely passionate about Ithaca football. Mm-hmm. And, I'll get on a kid, and then I'll pull him aside and be like, hey, I'm on you because, I see this talent you have. Mm-hmm. Like, so don't take it to heart. Like, I see you or I see myself in you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I know that you're better than me as a junior. Like, you have a good future. Like, it just all depends on how your mindset. And, because it started out, some kids have excuses, which we all do. And, I mean, I did it when I was young and, thought I had all the answers. And, but, I've just seen these kids already mature just in handling coaching. Or, you get to the best point. When you have the best teams, it's when they're player-led teams. Mm-hmm. And so if you have, like, your upperclassmen, your seniors, like, being able to coach a kid, an individual, because, I mean, I got, 9 through 12 working with the receivers on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's probably, and running backs throw in there in my group. There's probably like 20, 22 kids. Yeah. So it's like I'm running a drill. You're watching one kid at a time, but you don't have time to be able to coach him, individually so much and talk through it. So, you really rely on those older guys, and that's the coolest thing is to be able to see them pull a kid aside and say, no, this is the technique. This is what we're doing, why we're doing it. And, and then they start correcting themselves. Mm-hmm. If they make a mistake, they'll start to drill over themselves. Yeah. And it's like, Right.
If you can teach it,
Yep.
you definitely know how. Like once you start teaching stuff, you learn it more. You learn.
Oh,
it better.
yeah.
It's so much easier because then you're like, you can catch yourself. Like
Yep.
if you say something wrong, it's like no, like that's not it. Like
Right.
I know what we're doing now. I know the technique. Now this is how you do it.
Right.
Now in the back of his head, oh well, I know what to do now
Yep.
because I taught the younger
Yep.
generation what to do. Yeah. It's crazy seeing the upperclassmen being able to do that.
Yeah.
It's super nice too when they actually do. It's not even the fact that a lot of them know what to do.
Right.
Pretty much all the upperclassmen know what to do.
Right.
But are you willing to grab a kid and tell them that?
Yep.
That maybe like in a smaller school it's easier because like it's a smaller school.
Right.
But
right.
you get to maybe a class like Division 1 whatever. You got 50, 60 kids on your team.
Yeah.
Do you care about that freshman?
Right.
No, because you're worried about the 30 other people trying to take your spot.
Right. Exactly.
So, like, you don't have that. I mean, I never experienced it, but you wouldn't have that as much at those levels as
Right.
in a small town. You can really get down to it with everyone in a small town. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's like the cool thing. Just being able to come back and the town is the same as it always has been, but it's a different generation now.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing, and I guess it made me feel pride. The oldest I've ever felt in my life, because I was talking to a kid who's, he's actually going to be a senior. So I figured, like, he knew I went to Ithaca, everything like that, and we get to talk, and he's like, did you go to Ithaca? And I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, I forgot this kid was probably in, like,
what's my, like,
fourth grade when I was a senior, and so it's just funny, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I went to Ithaca. Like, yes, I did. I went here.
And that's the one time that you're like, I kind of want to talk about football.
Yeah, and I'm like, man,
damn, you don't even know who I am.
I was like, okay, it's kind of humbling.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, we never lost when I was here.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, of course.
Like I was a
went
part
here.
of the streak, bro. Like
Yeah.
you know the streak, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's like but then it's like, all right, you kind of sit back and think like, these kids are so far removed from when I was in school. I mean, I graduated in 2014, so it was like, we're going on 7 years, 8 years, whatever it's been.
Yep.
And it's like, shoot, these kids, when I was 17 as a senior, they're 10 years old. They're 9 years old,
I remember.
Those freshmen, those sophomores, I mean, they're 6, 7 years old. Like, they have no clue. And that's like the thing that it's like, shoot, because that's all I remember, because it feels like yesterday was we're winning state championships. Yeah. And, it's just not like that now. It's not. And so we just got to, keep doing the program how it's always been. Yeah. And, we'll be all right as long as the kids work hard and
keep that tradition.
Yep, just get the tradition going. And, obviously it's great that my brother's taking over from my uncle, who's in the Hall of Fame. And, I mean, a lot of pressure, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the kind of pressure you want. You don't want to have him take over a team that's been 0-9 for the last 20 years.
Because then there's no pressure.
Obviously. Right. Then if you get 3 wins, you get 3 wins, like, then your bar is set at 3 wins.
Yeah.
Then the next year you get 4, and it's like, okay, this still isn't good, but, it's just that whole perception of what people see Ithaca as versus, what other schools see as success. It's like, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just a pleasure just to be back home, like, to be able to help those kids out and, make relationships with those kids. I mean, that's the coolest part about it, by far.
For sure. That, and speaking back on those wide receivers, one of them, it was his junior year, and he was a big basketball player.
Yep.
And as you know, basketball players tend not to play football
at
Beaverton.
Yep.
So I told him, and I'm like, this is my calling card for any kid that was out there. I was like, hey, just come to weight room in the summer.
Right.
Because guess what? You twig.
Yeah.
Getting stronger will also help you in basketball.
Yep.
And guess what? We also play a little 7-on-7. We do all the fun parts of football for the last half hour at every weight room.
Right.
So obviously I'm going to get this kid to run routes and catch a ball from the senior quarterback who also wants him to play.
Right.
The three sport player. So you start, the instant you get him in that situation, it's game over. Because the kid wants to be, he just wants to be a part of it at that point.
Right.
And what was cool, senior year came around, we lost to New Lothrop in the district finals. First time we ever been to district finals. And he comes up to me in the locker room. He's like, I just want to let you know you're the reason I played football.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yep.
And I almost started I'm pretty sure I started crying.
Yeah.
Because pretty much anytime any season's over, the kids kill me, bro.
Yep.
It's not even the fact that you lose. It's the fact that you see the one kid that you've never seen cry in your life.
Right.
Cry.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, I mean, obviously I know what it is, but that will break you down so fast.
Yep.
And I have other coaches look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, bro, you shut up. Like,
Yeah.
you listen, like, look at this kid.
Yep.
Know what obviously he just been through for the past 2 years. Obviously it's not crazy, but
Right.
you know it's over. I know it's over
Yeah.
for him. And I know that feeling. So now I feel what he feels, and I'm just, oh man,
Yeah.
I lose it every time.
Yeah, and that's like another thing too that always like what always confuses me, like so many people see the weight room like as a football thing. And it's like
not.
it's like, all right, like okay, you might say that all right, baseball players don't lift, basketball players don't lift. It's like the first thing you go into college as an athlete, it doesn't matter what your sport is. You're in the weight room.
Already, yeah.
Like that's your biggest priority. Or there's kids that, they're 5-6 years older than me. I remember in high school, 6'5", 6'6", I'm a basketball player. Well, then they go play, at a school. First thing that the coach says is, all right, hey, you got to get bigger. It's time to get in the weight room.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, that's not what I heard in high school. And it's like, that's what everyone tells you. Like, they think that, all right, just because the football coach tells you this helps you in all sports, they're not just saying that.
No.
Like, but so many people just think that. And it's like, Justin Verlander squatted the most for the Tigers for so long when he was pitching there.
Yeah.
Like, he's the strongest guy from lower body down.
That's
like,
crazy. Because he doesn't, and in baseball, he doesn't look like an athlete,
Right,
obviously. He's just a normal dude.
Exactly. And, like, that was always something that just made me upset is, like, we had a baseball coach when I was in high school that was like, nope, baseball players don't lift. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, how do you get, like, you don't just develop power in your swing just by swinging harder. Like, you're only going to peak out at a certain strength, whether it's throwing the ball, whether it's swinging the bat. Like, you have to get stronger. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I could go on and on about that.
It's a weird science how no one, like, understood that. And everyone, like, it all started with, like, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yep.
I don't even know who came up with
that,
but it was every high school football coach in the country.
Yep.
It was just bigger, faster, stronger. And they got these kids doing deadlifts, squats, bench, and you got kids that clearly can't do those things.
Yep.
I have seen so many kids training at Beaverton that it's just like, oh, I can squat or I can deadlift 225, and I watch them, and this kid's 160 pounds. Like, you can't do it, bro.
Right.
Like, you pick it up with your background and all this other shit, and like you're just gonna get hurt, and then they think I'm being mean,
right?
Because then they can't lift with their buddy.
Yeah,
and it's like, bro, your buddy is 225 and is a senior.
Yep.
Get over it. Like, it doesn't matter that you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And kids always, I mean, your kid ego plays a role, and it's just like, I want to do the heavier stuff. It's like, you're not even remotely close to getting to that yet.
Right.
Just take your time. Like, they took their time and see where they're at. No one's gonna make fun of you for being in the corner goblet squatting with a 30-pound dumbbell.
Right.
Like, and it's just like in life too. Like, going to the gym and people are like, "Oh, I don't want to do anything because I don't."
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I wanted to learn how to do handstands and like walk on my hands. I walk on my hands in the turf bath Evolution all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here. I'll just hit a set of bench, go walk on my hands down and back.
Yep.
And people just look at me like, what the fuck is this kid doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you do it? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, it's cool. I think it's cool. So like, I don't care. And the owner of it put me on her Instagram. She got my name wrong. She thought I was Nick. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll ride with that. You put me on your face. I don't care.
Yeah.
But still, like, people, like, no one cares.
Yep.
And honestly, if you're doing weird shit, a lot of the times someone will come up and be like, that's kind of cool.
Right.
Like, and that's the only person I care about at that point.
Yeah.
I don't care about the people that are knocking me.
Oh,
it's just like, now I see that dude, and I always chuckle at him, because I'll, like, be squatting, and then he'll chuckle back, and I'm like, okay, and then I just walk over to some handstands, and he's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, then you can just walk up and do that. Like,
no, that's like, that's like the biggest thing, too. It's like, then you just translate, like, that kind of, like, train of thought, and that's where I've really grown up. It's like, there's always going to be people making comments. Like, there's still today, people have I'm sure of it. It's always going to be like that. People have a certain perception of me. They're not willing to change it. Okay, I don't care. I know who I am. Yeah. Like, all right, I'm going to do this because I like it or I think it's cool. Like, that's me. That's my life. Like, you're worried about my life so much. You're probably more worried about my life than you are about your own life. And it's like, some people live for that and, good for them. But it's like, I'm over that. Like, I was like that when I was younger, and it was like, you know, I'd always hate on different things, or like, oh, we'll make fun of someone. It's like, no, like, they have their own life. Like, let them do their own thing. If that makes them happy, that's like, at the end of the day, then I'll be happy. If they're happy, cool, that's their life. But I just got to make sure my life is happy and everything's in straight for me.
And once you actually come to the understanding that you really don't need anyone to, like, solidify anything you think. Like, what I think is in my own head, and I don't need to let anyone be a part of it.
Right.
Like, that's it. Like, I don't know. It's weird when you think about that. Just the self-identity and how it just changes on how people just say. And it's the simplest things.
Yep.
It could literally be like just someone making a small comment about how you look or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, now I'm thinking about that shit all day.
Yeah.
And it's, now you just drive yourself nuts all day. And like that, maybe that day you had you wanted to get a shit ton of chores done or homework. Too bad. You're on your phone thinking about how I can work out or do whatever I need to do to change the thing they told me.
Yeah.
It's like, no one gives a shit.
Yeah. And like, that's where, like, you know, that's like another thing like that I learned from was different relationships I had, like with different girlfriends or like, you know, even different friendships. It was like, you know, so many people like would say so many things about how I got to change, you know, to make them happy or for me to fit into their perspective of, all right, this is cool. Or it's like, no, like, why do I have to change? Because I'm not asking them to change one thing. So why am I going to spend that effort and that energy when I could just be bettering myself for what I want to do as opposed to trying to fit into the mold of someone else? Because like that drove me crazy. Like just having different toxic relationships and friendships before where, you know, the girls were great girls, the guys were great guys that, you know, I thought that were my friends. But it's like, no, they were stuck on me changing who I am to try to fit into something that I'm not. And it's
that
like
they wanted.
Right, that they wanted and was good for them. But it's like, okay, so then once you change, like so say I change for what they want, then a relationship breaks up, like right, then you break up or then you lose that friend. Well then it's like then you get caught in that like, well, who am I? Because I just spent X amount of months like you know, changing for something that I think's the better because someone else said it was gonna be better for me. Instead of having the maturity and, you know, the self-respect to realize, like, I'm not going to take this from this person because why would I? Like, you know, you got to have that mindset. Like, I'm not taking shit from anyone. And, you know, so that's just how, you know, I've realized and, like, becoming happier with myself is just, like, people are going to say whatever they want. Doesn't matter how much I change because then there's going to be the next person that's going to say something. So it's like, okay, like, why give that energy to them? Because that's what they want. Like, they want to see that effort in me changing. But it's like, that's not my life.
That's
you know,
not
that's
the
their
energy
life.
I want to put in. That's just a waste of energy. A lot of it, for me, when it comes to anxiety, I'll be actually 100% honest. I have never, I wouldn't say never, but I have never been to the level of anxiety that I believe people with mental health issues have been to. That's why, like, when it comes to talking about mental health, I love hearing about it. Because I keep saying that, but I haven't experienced it to that level. And so I was talking to another person at work, and she was telling me how when she, like, real depression, like, deep down depression, there are days where you legit don't even want to get out of bed because you would rather die. And I looked at her and I was like, what if you had to go to work that day and you're just so depressed and you don't want to go to work? She's like, work doesn't matter. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and she said that and I literally looked at her, I was like, that makes perfect sense. If you're willing to die, then why would you go to work? Why would you literally do anything else? So it was weird just seeing that and being like, hearing that and being like, you really like, and I actually, one of my other good friends went through that. He was sitting in the car and just it hit him. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, dude, I understand that does happen. But how do you get to that point? What added up over time? Or what was just that day? What did you go through that day that got you to that point? And it's just hard to think about. It's super hard to think about for me, but it's definitely a thing. It's definitely real.
That's like, well, I guess this will be the first time this goes public too about my like own personal story. when was it? It was like it was in March, this past March. Like, you know, I was so depressed. Like, I wasn't happy doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I actually, like, only, you know, probably 10 people know, like, my closest friends and my family, like, you know, I'd actually admitted myself into the mental health, like, rehab facility at Alma Hospital. I stayed 2 nights there, you know, met with different psychologists and everything. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is when I admitted myself, you know, I was told that I'd still get visitors and everything, but COVID's going on. And so, like, I admitted myself in the ER, you know, and just said, hey, I'm just really depressed. Like, I just want to talk to someone because it was on a weekend.
Yeah.
It's like I couldn't talk to my counselor or anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I made that decision. And they're like, yep, your brother will be able to come up and visit. You know, your parents will. And I'm like, this is perfect. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm going to spend all this time. And they had told me that I was going to be with people that are around my age because there's, like, 2 different wings of that, like, rehab facility. One is, like, you know, college students to, like, people under 30. So it's going to, and there's, like, 25, 30 people. So I was like, all right, this will be great. You know, I'll make more friendships here, hear their stories, how they go through different things and everything. It's going to be so informative to me.
Yeah.
So then I get in my, like, you know, unfortunate thing is, like, you go to the ER. So then they put you in a wheelchair to just go down the hall to go to the ward. So I'm, like, in the wheelchair, you know, I'm totally physically fine. I'm like, guys, I can walk. They're like, no, this is all, you know, protocol. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And so they wheel me through the doors to go into the wing that I'm expecting people around my age. And I see, like, 10 to 20 people that are, like, 60, 70 years old. And I'm like, I asked the lady who was, like, pushing me, I was like, I thought I was going to, you know, around my age. And they're like, well, actually, like, the last room had filled up, so, like, you're going to be in with the geriatrics, who's, like, the old people.
Yes, yeah.
And so I'm, like, freaking out. Like, I'm like, you know, I mean, I'm seeing stuff that I didn't even know was possible. Like, I walked in, and, like, it was great because I could still meet with counselors and everything. But honestly, like, I remember because there was one phone that you could use. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, for these people that had dementia and everything, you know, they thought they were at home. And so, like, I'm on this phone, there's, like, 10 minutes you could talk. So I'm talking to my dad, I'm talking to my friends, like, just, like, checking in on them and everything. And, you know, they're checking on me. And it's like this one lady kept coming around. She's like, you got to get off my phone. And I'm like, no, I still got time. Like, she's like, no, this is my house. And then, like, so I'm like, all right, whatever. I was like, I got to go. So I'd hang up the phone, you know. I'd go walk around. And then it's like, you go around this next corner, and then this girl's like, where's my shoes at? Asking me, because they think, like, I took her shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I literally felt like, I was like, okay, all right. So it kind of brought things, like, into reality for me in perspective. Like, all right, I could be going through stuff way worse. Like, you know, I could be at that level of not knowing what's going on in reality. But, you know, it was probably the biggest eye-opener for me, just being able to talk and learn so much about the brain. Like, because there's no phones in there. There's one TV in this common room that you could sit and watch. But, you know, it was the older people floor, so they're watching different shows than I would prefer to watch. So I wouldn't even go in there. And, you know, I read a lot. And, you know, the biggest thing for me is journaling a lot, too. And, you know, then I got, you know, released, and, like, I felt like a different person. Like, I finally felt like myself again.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really took me getting to rock bottom. Like, you know, that was the worst depression I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And I don't know really what caused it, but that's the unfortunate thing sometimes with mental health. It's like, you don't know when it's going to happen, but it'll just happen. You just have to, you know, be able to accept it. And instead of trying to deny those days where you don't want to get out of bed, you know, you got to embrace it and realize, like, all right, you know, I've been here before. I'm going to wake up next day. It's a new day. Yeah. And so when I finally realized that, you know, that made everything so much better. And, you know, now I'm even more passionate telling everyone about my own struggles, because it's like, you know, I want people to feel comfortable. If they have an issue, come talk to me. I'm not I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. But, like, I have different connections now to where I can get you to that person. Or you can have those conversations. If you don't want to have them with me, then go have them with this person. Or, you know, that's just, like, the coolest thing. I'm just, you know, thankful for, like, the different unity that people have, you know, solidified with me, with people I never even knew I'd be friends with. Yeah. And it's like, you know, now they're my closest friends. Exactly. And, you know, that's the coolest thing about it, is growing up, and, you know, some of those childhood friends that you thought were always going to be your friends aren't your friends anymore, because they still see you as someone that you should be in their mind, but it's like, that's not who I am.
That was 10 years ago, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was, like, the coolest thing for me, and just being able to have my family support me, and, My different friends that, I've been feeling good, for so long now.
Yeah.
But, I know I'm going to have a downtime again.
Oh, yeah.
But, now I'm just more prepared for it. And now I have so many more people I can talk to before it gets to that point where I feel like I got to admit myself in rehab,
Yeah.
But that's like another thing too. It's like you hear rehab and it's like, oh my God. Like even when I was going through that stuff in college, like I heard rehab, I'm like, oh, I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, rehab's not a bad thing. Like, it's just that negative like perception people have of it.
Love it, yeah.
And, it's like, shoot, like that was honestly probably the toughest thing I had ever went through was going to rehab. Like,
and that's just admitting to yourself that you need to go to rehab. Like, there's no other voice in that.
Yeah.
It's you picking up your keys and going.
Yeah, like, and that was like the thing. Like I asked my family, hey, I want you guys to come with me, but like I need to do this.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing, about how they've grown now since knowing my mental health struggles too. If I would have had that conversation with them 6 years ago when I, first found out that I was really actually going through stuff, they probably said, you're fine. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you're good. And I would have believed them. But, now they realize that, what? Like, you got the flu, you go to the doctor, it's the same thing. It's your brain. Mm-hmm. But your brain's the most important organ. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it's like, all right, I told them, and they're like, all right, let's go. We'll go with you.
Yeah.
And, being able to have that support that, so many people don't have that. And
a lot of people don't have that.
And so that's what, makes it good for me. But that's the thing too. Like, that's why I want to just be as most like open about it as I can, because I know so many people don't have those outlets that they can talk to, or they don't feel comfortable talking to. And that's why I was like, all right, still some people see me as this athlete, but I'm going to prove that I'm a person. Like, I'm not an athlete. Like, I don't want to be defined by football. Like, there's so much more to me. Yeah, football is a huge part of my life, but I can live without football.
I want to be a better person. I want to be someone that you look up to in the sense of anything.
Right.
Like, I don't want you to come up to me and ask me what defense to run.
Right.
I want you to come up and ask me, like, how are you? Like, obviously, how are you? How's your health? How is your kids? And just being a part of that community. Yeah,
and I think, like, the thing that, like, I kind of, like, realized even in this past couple months is, like, 5 years ago, obviously, I wouldn't have had a kid, but, like, 5 years ago, if I had a kid, I'd want my son to think of me as a football player. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I am. You know what I mean? That's everything I put my effort into. That's what everyone sees me as. I want to be this cool parent who is a football player. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? If I have a kid and he don't want to play football growing up, that's fine. Obviously, I want him to do something. Yeah. But you know what? It's his life. Like,
as long as he's doing something.
Right. If he's doing something, like, all right, if he doesn't play sports at all, well, then be active. Go do something else. Go for a run. Go for a walk. Like, go biking. I don't care what you do.
Learn something.
Yeah, learn something, because at the end of the day, like, so many of my friends I had seen, in college and in high school were living out their parents' dream. Like, obviously, my dream at a time was the NFL.
Yeah.
If I have two girls, they're not playing in the NFL.
Exactly. Yeah.
If they don't want to play basketball, they don't want to play softball, just be a good person.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. That's what, at the end of the day, that's all you're going to go down as is whether you're a good person or a bad person. Yeah. And, that's just, it's the crazy thing, like, just realizing, like, now I just want to be seen as a good father. Like, eventually, I want to be seen as a good husband, someone that someone can talk to. And I played football, but that's not what, like, that's not my elevator speech. Yeah, I'm Logan Hessbrook. I played football. I'm, now I do this. It's like, no, I'm Logan Hessbrook. It's like one word to describe me. I'm determined. Like, that's it. Yeah. I can use that energy and the determination I used in football. Everything I've learned in my life can be related to the game of football, right? Easily. Just like it could be for you.
Exactly.
Any sport you played, basketball, football, like anything that you learn in life, adversity, teamwork, like communication even.
Communication is,
And, that's the biggest thing. It's like, I've learned so much with football. In any job interview I've had, like, if there's the amount of times, like, if I had a nickel for every time in an interview that I said, well, football taught me this.
Yeah.
When it's like, I have other work experience from other companies and other jobs, it's like, still, like...
Nothing stuck more than football.
Nothing stuck more than football. I met so many people at Central that, some people didn't have fathers. Some people didn't have family. And, like, literally their only way out was football.
Yeah.
And, so I'd seen how they had to get to college and their path of getting there. But then being able to see the growth and, how they then translate, like, you know what? Yeah, football got me here, but what's going to get me through the next part of my life?
Yeah. Because even pros end.
Yeah. NFL stands for not for long. Like that's the thing. And
what are you gonna do when you're 30, 35? Yeah. You still have almost more than half of your life left.
Yeah.
And you are no longer a football player.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and that's like, when I was thinking like to myself, like when I was like, all right, I had these NFL dreams. It was like at that time, like it was literally for me at that time in my life, I was so narrow-minded on the game of football, just from what everyone thought of me and who I began to identify myself as. It was like, I have to make it to the NFL or my life literally means nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the pattern I got stuck in.
Yeah.
So it was like that shut me off from so many different things. Yeah. So many more experiences I could have had in college with my friends and everything else. Like, is going to Fort Lauderdale probably the best for your health, in college? Probably not.
It's a story.
But it's something that, I wish I would have. And, my parents always said, well, don't you want to go do something? Don't you want to go to spring break with your friends? I was like, nope, I'm going to the NFL.
Yeah.
It's like, that was it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it took me waking up and realizing, like, oh, man, I'm not this NFL dude. You know what I mean? And, being able to just mature from that, like, has been so, I don't know, I guess it's just like there's such a weight off my shoulders now that I've realized that, that was a time in my life, it formed the best relationships, and everything that you could ask for in the business world, like, translates to football, like everything. And, I'll always be thankful for it, but it's like, where I'm at in my life right now, like, I've never been happier. And it's just because I'm living in the moment. Like, I'm blocking out so much outside noise about everything. Like, there's nights still nowadays where it's like, shoot, I just want to play Call of Duty all night. And I'll do it. And it's like, all right, like, who cares what other people say? Yeah. Who cares if they think, oh, this kid's wasting time playing video games? Like, well, this is my life. Yeah. Like, I want time sometimes to myself where I don't talk to anyone. You force yourself to have those deep conversations, like, interpersonally. Yeah. And, that's been the most, like, relieving thing for me.
And how, like, so talking about, like, you talking to yourself in your head, how much did you obviously have to do that while you were in rehab? Because, you have no one to talk to. I mean, you didn't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
So the only person is the guy in your head that you have to sit there and deal with.
Yeah.
And how you were in there for 2 days, right?
Yeah. 2 days.
2 days.
Yep.
2 days is pretty freaking long when there's nothing to do.
Oh yeah, and like it was tough. Like my 2 nights I stayed there, I cried myself to sleep at night. Yeah. Because I had let myself, fall prey to whatever it was. There's a combination of different things, and a lot of it has to deal with the outside noise of what other people would say to me, instead of me just manning up and respecting myself enough to know who I am as a person. I was so stuck on being someone that I'm not. Mm-hmm. And, so that was like, it was like tears of like, I guess like not pity for myself, but like remorse for like, why did I let myself get here? Mm-hmm. And, but then it was also like awakening, like to realize like, you know what? I literally had to go through hell. It's time to get out of it. Yeah. And like being able to come out of it, like I know for a fact I'll never be in that place again. Yeah. Like I know.
And it's just like an epiphany you had.
Yeah.
Like, this will not happen again. And it's once you have that little epiphany, it's so easy to make decisions that contradict that.
Right.
So then you ever get to the point where you're like, oh, like that's how you feel, like that's how you felt in the past, you instantly just snap out of it. And you're just like, I will not allow it.
Yeah. And that's like when my parents, when I'd gotten like released from there, like my parents had to come pick me up, and I remember having those conversations with them, and the first thing I said when I got in the car was like, I love you guys. Like, because I'd become so focused on changing myself for what other people wanted, instead of me being with the people and listening to the people that have been there for me my whole life. You let someone who had been in your life for a fraction of time try to deter you from your family and what their thoughts are, as opposed to just being able to understand and like realize, like, you know what, like, I don't care who it is, like, I'm not ever going to turn my back on my family and my closest friends.
Yeah, but it's really hard, super hard, when the person doing that is your closest friend or your parents or aunt, uncle, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy because then you obviously look up to them so much and you just take what they say is right.
Right.
And then it's not because they don't admit to themselves that they're going through what you're going through.
Yep.
But they project all their shit on you.
Yep.
And then it's just like, it's just a freaking bigger hole to dig yourself out of.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out how to do it by yourself.
Right.
Because obviously they're not going to help you, and no one else is going to help you. Because you kind of have to stay in certain situations. Obviously, close friend you can get rid of, but parents, are you going to get rid of your parents? Is it that bad? Like, I don't know. And it's just like, you got to look into that and look into yourself and be like, if you do this, I'm out.
Right.
If you, like, anytime that this situation arises, I will notice and I will not be a part of it.
Exactly.
And it's going to be a dick move. I might stand up in the middle of a family gathering and get out and just leave.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to explain to you. You should know.
Right.
Like, it should be over and done right then.
Yep. And it's just like, that's like the biggest thing. It's like that self-awareness of like setting those standards for yourself.
Yes.
Like, and you know, a year ago, if we'd have these conversations, honestly, I probably would have said a year ago that this is the best I've ever been as a person. But the amount of growth I've done in 1 year, you know, even in 3 months of being in the rehab, like, I'm not even close to the same person. Like, and like, that's where it's like, I'm 25 years old. Like, you know, I got so much more of my life ahead. So then it's like, you know, it's not like you look forward to the future to see how much you can grow and develop, but it's like,
how are you gonna do it?
It's like, I'm not at my peak yet, but it's like, if you take each day and, you know, you break it down, you got 24 hours. So it's like, what are you gonna do in those 24 hours? Doesn't mean that each 24 hours has to be spent working out or, you know, doing something or reading, but it's like, what in that day is gonna bring you the most joy?
Yeah.
And it's like, once I realized that mindset of what's gonna make Logan Hessbrook happy today, then I realized, oh my gosh, like, I'm living my life.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to what other people are doing. I'm not trying to model my life after someone else. Like, and you take all that out of, you know, you take social media, and that was the biggest thing in rehab. You can't be on your phone.
Yeah.
So 48 hours, that doesn't sound like a long time, but not being able to, you know, as immature and childish as it sounds, check Snapchat, you know, check Instagram, check Facebook, like, but being able to isolate yourself from all of that outside noise has been like the most like beneficial thing to me. Like, now, I mean, I text people, but I'm not on social media too much, like as much as I used to be. And, you know, I mean, I still post and everything, but it's like, you know,
you post and then you just let it go.
I'm post, and it's like, I'm not looking for like any sort of like outside like acceptance. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm gonna post this picture, people are gonna like it. Some people are gonna be like, oh, well, this kid looks like such and such, or like, what is this person? It's like, you know what, man?
I like it.
It's like, I bought a cowboy hat like like 3 weeks ago. I'm telling you, do I look probably foolish to some people? Absolutely. But you know what? I love it. Like, I love it. And it's like, you know, it's just like, for me now, it's like, you know what? I don't care what people think is style or think is cool. Like, you know what? I'm going to still be this outgoing person. And it's like, hey, if you want to be on this journey with me, you know, whether that be a relationship, a friendship, anything, join. But if you tell me to change, now I got that, you know, like, I've become so much more, not like you had mentioned, like being a dick, but it's like, you become so much more stern with your standards as a person, where it's like, I don't care what you say, then just get out. Like, if you're not bettering me right now, if, you know, if you're not pushing me to become, you know, better at what I want to become, then that's not support. You know, that's toxic. You know, that's toxic if you're trying to push me to do something that you want me to do, not what I want to do, then, you know, that's where I've grown so much. And just because that's what I looked for. I'd looked for people to try to open my mind to different things or, you know, get me involved in other things. And it's like, that ain't me. That's not what I want to do. Like, you know what? Some days, do I want to spend $20 on McDonald's? Do I know it's not good? I do. But you know what? that ain't gonna hurt in the long run.
No.
Right? If I'm gonna die of something, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. You never know. I could walk out of your stairs right now and I could fall down, hit my head, and I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out. But you know what? This is the best day I've had today.
Yeah.
Because that's how I think of things now.
Yeah.
It's like, let me have the best day that I can have today.
Yeah.
I don't care what I'm doing for the 4th. I mean, I'm going to Torch Lake, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
but you know what? Like, how is Wednesday going to be my best day?
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'll figure it out in the morning. Like, and you know, I talked to my mom actually, like, because she had asked, like, well, what are you doing for the 4th? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to Torch Lake, but it's like, you know what? I don't know. I'll honestly find out Friday morning when I wake
Whatever
up.
happens, happens. If someone texts me
Yeah.
and they say, hey, you want to go here?
Right.
Maybe I do.
Right.
Like,
That, and, or it's like, you know what? There's some times where I've told my friends, yeah, I'll go to the bar. You know what? 2 hours later after work, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have a drink. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a Friday night. And people be like, oh, that's lame. Or like, what are you doing? Or like,
Yeah.
you're soft. And it's like, you know what, man? You know I'm down usually for a lot of things. But right now, today, what I want to do is I want to watch Zombieland and eat popcorn. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so it's
Just
like,
sit down and relax.
so being able and being able to realize, you know, your true friends and your family, you know, like how tight they are and how much they really care for you.
Yeah.
When they're okay with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And they don't make you feel bad for it.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Like, first of all, you calling me lame isn't gonna get me to go out with you.
Right.
Like,
I don't want to see you at all. Actually,
no,
now
fuck
you,
you, bro.
yeah,
Like, that's-
now you made it easy. Like
Yeah.
now there is not a chance I want to see you for at least a week.
Yeah.
Like, and you know that's like the cool thing. Like, you know, now like that I gotten at least to what I think like my full potential as of right now.
yep.
Like, you know, after rehab and, you know, being able to talk with my counselor about more things. And because even when you're talking to a counselor, you know, you only get out so much as what you put in it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think what a lot of my downfall was is I was still meeting with my counselor, but I was still almost wearing that fake smile and not telling the deepest and darkest things.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to vocalize it because I knew I was already going through it. And so I didn't want to bring up those pain points because I didn't want to feel reminded of it.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, no, it's difficult. Like, I don't want to have those conversations with myself
Yep.
of the different thoughts I've had or anything like that. But, you know, being able to get that out to someone, some avenue, whether that be journaling, talking to your parents, your friends, you know, your significant other, or your counselor, like, being able to do that is so, like, relaxing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's times where I'd be done with a counseling appointment, and you know, I'd be done at 2 in the afternoon, whatever, after my lunch break, and having counseling over lunch, like, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, I've never felt so tired in my life because you let off so much of that stress
Yeah.
that's been weighing you down, and you had no clue it was
Yeah.
because you don't want to accept it.
Yep.
And like, so being able to accept that and realizing like you're just a person, like, shoot, man, I mean, in 3 months, I've probably cried over the dumbest things, not in like a sad way, but like as a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Like the beautiful things, like, you know, I shot my turkey like this spring, and you know, it was a little after a month after I'd gotten out of rehab. Like, it was like I cried. I've hunted my whole life, but like, you know, I'd never like really had that understanding, that appreciation for like actually living in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I'd always been thinking like, okay, well, you know, I got this workout, but tonight I got this party. Or,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm going through work and I'm living for the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, no. Like, you know, now, I mean, Sunday night, I stayed up till 3 a.m. watching Zoo on Netflix. It's a series.
Mhm.
I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I slept like 4 hours. I woke up Monday morning, I was happy.
Yeah.
Because when you start to be able to just appreciate things instead of stressing about the amount of sleep you can get,
Yeah.
or like stressing about like the next day, like being able to just live in that moment.
You can't do anything about the next day.
Exactly.
Right now. You can't do anything.
Exactly, because how I thought of things too, it's like, you know, and that's really what just switched my mindset about living. Like, today's the best day that I'm gonna have today.
Yeah.
Because I might not have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if I look healthy or if I feel great. You know, I could have something happen at night. I could get shot. Who knows? Like, you literally have no idea, like, when you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And so being able to know that and like have that sort of understanding, it's not like you live in fear, but it's like you live in like
Reality.
realizing like, hey, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's how I approached football my whole life, was like, you know, I never know when it's gonna be my last play. Well, it's like, all right, You know how easy it is that to say, all right, your last play, and then this could be my last day. You know, like
I'm gonna play hard.
Like today, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Yep.
Whatever I want after I get my work done. But it's like I'm not gonna carry whatever happened at work over into my social life after work.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I lock up the office and I'm out for the day, I'm out. I'm not thinking about work. I'm thinking like, all right, I'm getting in my truck. I'm gonna turn on whatever music it may be, whether that's country, rap, whatever it is. You know, anything. It's like, what's gonna make me happy today?
Yeah.
And you know, that's like the biggest thing that, you know, I could try to help people with is like, listen, don't let the small things like.
Don't sweat it.
Don't sweat it, because there's gonna be so many things that happen. Like even if it feels like the worst thing in your life, like there's always gonna be tomorrow. Yeah. So let today's problems live today, and let those problems die today.
Yeah.
Like, and if something comes up that's happened in the past where, you know, you have a similar conversation with someone, a difficult conversation, or you hear something you don't want to hear, it's like, all right, just let it live in that moment, and then that's it. Yeah. Like, then just move on.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just all I can say is, like, I'm just trying to live today. Yeah. It's the best day. Like, what, it's 6:30 right now? Shoot.
Chilling.
I'm going to be, you know, I'll be awake, hopefully. You never know. I could die. You know, 30 minutes from now, who knows what could happen, right? But it's like, I've lived everything today that I possibly could.
Could have, yeah.
Whether that fits the idea of a perfect day to someone, great, that's their perfect day. You know, so like when I try to tell people, like, or if they ask me like, well, what should I do? What should I do this weekend? Or what should I do with this job? It's like, no, like I'm not even going to comment on that because that's something you have to figure out on your own. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one that has to go to sleep and lay on your pillow at night. Like you're the only one that, like, you're brushing your teeth at night, you're looking in the mirror.
Yep.
Like there's no one else around you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's all you got is yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great to have support, but it's still like you can't rely on other people for happiness. And that's all. I mean, I've spent so much more time on my own now than I ever have.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm truly happy.
It's way more fun
with who I am. Like, you know, and that's like the best thing is when you can find that inner peace and that inner happiness with doing just the dumbest things. Like, shoot, like even just washing like my truck. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's relaxing.
Yeah.
Mowing the yard. Like,
you don't get to think about anything else.
It's all living.
Do that, and it's
just
presence.
It's just living in the present, and you know, not thinking about what happened before, or not thinking what can my future hold. And you know, that's like the most important thing to me now. And it's like, shoot, who knows? I might not ever get married, or tomorrow I could be my wife.
Yep.
Right? But I'm not going to focus on that. Because why? Why? I mean, I'm 25.
You don't need to stress about stuff that you can't control.
Right, and I hear a lot of my friends who have girlfriends and stuff, like, they're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, this is the one, like, you know, this, and then they get so narrow-minded, so, like, if they break up, you know, they're wrecked.
Yeah.
You know, they're done.
Because like, they were so focused on
they're so narrow-minded and, like, tunnel vision on this has to be it, or I gotta be married by 30 and have 2 kids. It's like, no, like that's just what other people make you think. Like your idea of success, like who cares? Because at the end of the day, if you're 30 and you have a wife and 2 kids, then they're going to be saying, well, their kids could behave better, or he could be a better husband, a better father. Like, so who cares anyway? Like that's, I just kind of like one of my like college coaches, like he came up with a motto. It's called SOFA, and it was show out and then explicit word F all, because that's essentially what it is. Like your life, like you have to show out for yourself. Everyone else, they don't matter. Like who cares what they're gonna say? Because they're still gonna hate you. Like if someone is that narrow-minded to think like, oh well, if they're gonna spend that much money on, or that much energy on worrying what Logan Hessbrook's doing, they're not living their life.
Yeah, they're not worried.
So
they're not present.
Yeah, they're not present. They're worried about other people, external factors. Like that's their idea of being able to go to sleep at night and say all these comments, or you know, call people out on social media. Like if that's what they want to do, go ahead. Yeah. But I still got my corner. That's all I need. Like that's all I need for life.
And like you were talking about the stress, Lance Manny actually, when I was talking to him the other day, he was talking about how your mind doesn't know the difference between physical and mental stress.
Yeah.
So like literally anxiety and all this other mental health is literally, your body is just like, it's running a marathon.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're dealing with it.
Yep.
Constantly, and you're forcing yourself to go through that without just, you know, stopping for a second thinking like,
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Right.
And like when it comes to like crying too, my grandpa passed away recently, and there was that point. I don't know why, but I figured this out when I was a kid, and I never knew why I did it, but now I kind of realize. But like anytime I cry, I fucking bawl.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna cry about something, you are gonna know. And
Right.
I'm gonna get it completely out of me, because I guarantee you I will never cry about that again.
Right.
That thing. So whatever that specific thing is, I will get it out of me.
Yep.
And I will be done. I'll do it. I don't care. Like obviously a funeral is, I mean, a pretty typical place to cry. But it doesn't matter. Football field.
Yep.
Freaking a movie theater. I don't care. If a dog dies on a movie, I'm crying.
Yeah.
And it's like I will get it out, and then I'll be like, okay, well I'm good.
Yep.
But like you just gotta be in that moment, and you gotta realize like shit, like this sucks.
Yep.
But it'll be over in a second.
Right.
Like
yeah.
it'll be over pretty soon. Once you figure out, like you just go through that stage. You got to get through that before you get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
You got to get through that shit before you get back to realizing, like, okay, my grandpa was awesome.
Yep.
I love my grandpa. He's gone now, but there's all these things that I remember from him. So like, why the hell am I going to think about him dying? There's no point in it now. I can't bring him back to life.
Right.
Obviously, but it's crazy just being able to set up your mind to where it's like, accept it, get over it.
Yep.
Not even get over it, but just accept it and think like, yeah, that sucks. I realize that sucks, and now I'm on to the next thing, and I'm going to learn from that. I'm not going to just forget about it.
Yep.
But I'm going to realize that that's there, that's a thing, next option.
Right.
And it's super hard to do, and I know it's hard to do. But I've just come to that realization that that's what I do, and it's super nice to be able to. I mean, and it also, a lot of people, some of my good friends have actually told me like, you're really like unsympathetic, and I'm like, no. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like I don't sit there and just whine about shit bad shit that happens to people. Like we were at work, once again bringing up work, but this is back in Midland, and someone's house burned down. Yeah. And I'm sitting here, and they're all telling me about how sad it was and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, that sucks. And they're like, oh, you don't feel bad? I'm like, Ryan, are you gonna go buy that person clothes? Right. Are you gonna go build a house for him? Yeah. And he's like, no, but you can feel bad still. I'm like, yeah, but why would I waste the energy to feel bad for someone that? I mean, if I'm gonna do something for him, fuck yeah. Right. Like waste that energy. That's good wasted energy. Yep. But I mean, I don't know this person. Yep. There's a lot of other factors in my life that just, I mean, I don't have money. I can't just be throwing it around. But like, yeah, I get it. Your house burned down. What's next? Right. Like, it sucks. I understand. Yeah. And it's super unsympathetic. And I'm like, yeah, like, but you got to just move on. Right. Like, the house isn't going to come back. This isn't going to happen. Get to step 2. Because a lot of people like to stick on step 1 and just piss and moan. Yep. And it's like, dude, you're pissing and moaning. I don't even feel bad. Right. Like, yeah, shit happens. Get over it. Go on to the next thing.
Right. And I think, like, you know, a lot of that, too, like, you know, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, when I came out public about, like, my mental health and everything, you know, there's certain people who are like, well, I feel so bad. I didn't know what was going on or anything that's like that. And it's like, you know what? Like, stop wasting your time thinking about what I went through, because I'm over it, and now I'm looking for the next day. Like, you know, I'm living this one, and then I got the next day. Like, I'm over it. I know, that made me, that terrible time, everything that I've went through, yeah, you can feel bad, but I'm not asking for that. No. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm trying to educate people. Yeah. Like, no, like, I'm telling you guys this is what I went through because, one, I don't want you to go through it. I don't want your friends to go through it, but reality is they're going to go through something. Yes. And it's like, you can't be that person who just feels bad for them. Like, you have to be, like, that person to get them back up on their feet.
Yeah, you have to take action.
Right. And it's like, and that's what I told, like, my family and my friends. It's like, when I tell you guys I'm going through something, like, I'm not looking for you to be like, oh, man, well, you know, well, it'll be okay. And it's like, no, I'm telling you, so then you know. Like, and you can kind of, you know, kick my ass and just say, hey, let's go. Let's pick it up.
Yeah, let's go do something.
Yeah, let's go do something.
Let's be together. Let's go work on something and change whatever mind you're in. Yep. And then completely reframe that. So when it's like, oh, I'm having a shitty day. Well, maybe my dad needs me to cut wood for him or something.
Yep.
And be like, I don't want to fucking cut wood, but it's better than fucking sitting here doing nothing.
Exactly.
So you just get that mindset to where you think you can actually do these things.
Yep.
And like you have the motivation.
Right.
And when you do get the motivation, it's like, whoa, like this is fun. And it doesn't it doesn't usually seem this fun.
Exactly.
Like washing the truck.
Yeah.
Or like doing the little thing, reading a book. Like these things weren't fun. And now they are because I've grown, because I figured this out.
Yep.
Something finally clicked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the dumbest things, like, you know, you can just take pride in so much stuff that doesn't cost money. Like, it doesn't have to have a cool picture on social media. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different things that you can do that you don't need anyone. You don't need a phone. You don't need to go on TV. You don't need to do anything. Like, I've been trying to practice, like, meditation stuff.
Yeah.
Like, not that good at it yet, but it's
fine.
like, you know, I want to get to that because, like, you know, I'd read Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and it was like probably like the deepest book I ever read, and it was just all about focusing on the present and nothing else matters. And like being able to get down to the core roots of, all right, this is what causes this is what, you know, all in your own life, because it's not centered around anyone else, it's centered around yourself. And so, you know, I'm trying to be able to master that too, and it's like, all right, well, you know, just like football, if I want to run a good route, I got to practice it. So it's like, all right, I want to meditate, I got to practice it. It's not going to be great the first time, but if I can master that too, it's just like another thing that you're adding to your arsenal that costs $0. And the more you can do to provide joy and peace and calmness within your own life, you know, a lot of that's free.
And you can do that anywhere.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere, any time of the day.
Anytime, Something bad happened, go sit in the bathroom, pretend like you're taking a shit, and just think about what you're doing. Breathe for a second. And it's just like, geez, oh Pete, like, okay, like, that sucked, but this is what we're doing. Like, we're on to the next thing. No, meditation's kind of crazy. I've done it once to the sense of like, and it's not even this, but like, I was sitting on the couch over there, and I shit you not, I was watching the show. It was Midnight Gospel, and it was like it's like a podcast, but it's animated. And it was a mom talking to her son, and she's like, I just want you to feel present for a sec. Sit down, close your eyes, and I want you to feel what it's like to be inside your hand. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, what the fuck does she mean? So I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, what does it feel like to be inside my hand? So then all you literally, like, you can come to the point where, like, you think so hard about one thing, you honestly think that's what you are. And it's like you can control way more than you ever imagined. You can literally control in your head. And it's unreal. And then I read another book called Consciousness, and it was literally about like people don't understand why they do anything. And humans are literally the only thing on the planet that have a sense of self. If you take your sense of self out of everything, it's unreal what you can do. Because, like, if you think that that's what you do, then you're thinking about you. Why? Who cares what you think? It's in your head. You're the only one that hears it. So why are you projecting that now? Like, just be here. Just be now. And it's so, once you do, like, obviously, you have moments. You can't really, like, obviously, these monks are, like, sitting here always like that. Not always, but more so than anyone else. And you kind of think back, like, if they can really do that, they can sit and do whatever they want and control that mindset. Why can't you? Or why can't you enough to the point where you're, like, just better? It's unreal. Meditation, everyone knocks it, though, and everyone's like, oh, it's weird. You sit down and you just breathe. And it's like, yeah, bro, have you ever thought about doing it? It's pretty mind-opening. Like, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about what you think about in your free time, and you realize how that translates to life. And, like, why are you thinking about this all the other times? Like, you don't need to be thinking about these little things.
And that's just, like, you know, it's just kind of like the whole perception thing. Like, you know, one of my friends who's going up to Torch Lake, you know, today we were texting. He's like, well, should we get a keg for the weekend? I was like, no. Like, why? He's like, well, honestly, it'd look really cool. And I was like, dude,
who cares?
Like, who cares? Like, why do you want to be the guy that's like, oh, well, yeah, well, I brought a keg. Like, what's cool about that? Like, all right, you're going to get that 30 seconds of everyone coming around saying, oh, my gosh, you brought a keg? Like, just live in the moment. Like, quit focusing, like, on what other people are going to think of you that weekend.
Yeah.
Like, because that weekend's going to come and go, and 80% of those people you're probably not going to talk to again.
Exactly. And like that relationship, those relationships that he would have gained by bringing Keg are going to be so weak and just quick.
Right.
That, like, rather than, I brought a 30-pack, you ran out of beer, here's a
exactly.
And then it's like, like, that dude just gave me a beer, like one of his, like, few beers.
Right.
Clearly that means something.
Yep.
So, like, now, maybe I'll go talk to him and actually have a real conversation rather than doing a keg stand.
Exactly.
Like, who cares?
Yeah, that, and it's like, so many people, like, you're going to get that satisfaction. Would it be cool if we did? Yeah, it'd honestly probably be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, 5 years ago, I would have thought that was the world. Like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would have been thinking about that. Oh, my gosh, we're bringing a keg. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
So many people are going to come up and start talking to us. But it's like those people, it's just like the kid that is in school and he's got a pack of gum, right?
Yep.
He has a piece of gum.
Yep.
Next thing you know, you got 15 friends.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yep.
Oh, I want a piece of gum.
And now you're out of gum.
You know what? That gum runs out of flavor, so did that friendship.
Yeah.
And they're not only going to come back until that you have something else that's, like, actually tangible that you can provide for them.
Yes.
Like, and that's just, like, the whole, like, thing. I was like, as simple as it is about a keg, I'm like, dude, just think about it. How dumb is that?
Yeah.
Like,
are we gonna finish it?
yeah, that's what I said. I was like, what? Why? I was like, that's just so dumb, dude. I'm like, it's a waste of money.
Waste of space.
Yeah,
someone else could sit there.
It's like, all right, man, you want to go on the boat? Oh, hey, can you help us carry this keg out there?
Yeah.
Like, dude.
And obviously, you're gonna get asked.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to lift that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna drink out of it. You do that shit.
Exactly.
Shit's heavy.
Yep.
And like, you got stairs going onto the boat and everything. Fuck that.
That's just risky at the
Yeah.
time.
I don't want to trip and fall, dude. Like, I got a life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my god, dude. That's sweet. That's
Yeah.
sweet. Oh, I think we're good.
Think we're good?
Yeah, dude. We almost went 2 hours.
No way.
It's an hour and 45 right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Bro, that's like Joe Rogan's finest.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, that was fun, man.